this size.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so good evening and welcome. I am going to open tonight's meeting since we haven't reorganized yet. We don't have a chair. And that's item 2 on the agenda. So item 1 is public comments. So I will entertain any public comments at this time. Are there any?
Nobody out in the public.
Nobody in public? No one? Okay. Then I'll close public comments and we'll go right into reorganization of the board and appointments to the committee. First, we have we do have a new member, Nelson Brunel. Nelson, have you been duly sworn in by the clerk in your committee?
Yes, I have.
All right, thank you. I have to ask that before. No other new members present, correct? Okay. So nominations are now in order for the chair of the Shaftesbury, wait a second, I'm reading it. Yes. Okay. Nominations are, you're out, Fran. Nominations are in order for the chair of the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union School District.
I'll nominate Ken
I'll
Swears.
nominate Ken Sweard.
I'll
All right,
second it, Dan.
Second?
Norman seconded. All right. Are there any other nominations for chair?
I'll move close nominations.
Do I have a second to close nominations?
Second.
Nominations have been closed. All in favor of Ken Sweard as the chair of the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union, please say yes by raising your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're not going to vote, Ken? 10, 11, yes. So I'll declare that Ken, and if you will come join me, we'll begin the rest of the nominations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Okay, second was, item will be the nomination for vice chair. I'd like to nominate Fran Kenny.
Second.
Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Leon Johnston.
Okay, Leon Johnson. Second?
Oh, I'll second.
Second, okay. Any others?
So
Okay, seeing none, then we'll have to have a paper ballot.
and you want, I don't have them, so we're going to have to. There's one.
11 people.
Yeah, those, yep. Library slips, yep. Yep. So we have 2 candidates. You have Fran and Leon.
Good.
I'll collect them for the chair.
The old numbers, and it's pretty obvious that it'll cost you.
Fran or Leon? Oh, you're right.
Huh?
You're just alternate, right?
Yeah, I don't. Not voting, I'm just listening.
How do you spell we?
Did you vote? Oh, you're an all.
So, what do you agree on? We fight it and everything else. The whole town wants it. Pretty much. I said, you can't find anybody who doesn't want it.
You have water with you. Or was there? There is water there now.
I told, well, that's what the chimney was.
I'll whittle it for you. Oh, thanks.
He didn't get the, and I already sent it down, whatever happened after the Shaftesbury executive session.
Yeah, they've only done it twice, we got to do it, a formal.
I guess I'll add that.
It's seriously really gets twice.
Thanks.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't vote. He's an alternate.
He's an alternate.
You had 10 present.
You have 10 votes.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
There's 10 votes.
Declined to vote, though.
10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you have 10 voting,
All right.
and there's your results. There, Mr. Town.
Okay, as a tally by the superintendent, Fran, 8, Leon, 2. Okay, next, we need a clerk.
Clerk, yeah.
Clerk. Okay, can we have a motion for clerk?
Make the motion, Dave Durkee.
Okay, Durfee, you have a second? Second. Second, okay. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Dave being the clerk? Unanimous.
Committee assignment, you sent someone to
Congratulations.
negotiations?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
There's an SVSU rep for negotiations too, correct?
Yes.
So we're gonna need to do that, yeah.
Who is that now?
Who's that now?
It is currently Dave,
We have to have him continue, yeah.
Has been.
yeah.
Okay, we should have Dave continue on.
Okay. So you're gonna declare that as chair?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing is that the superintendent, I was in the hospital, but the superintendent was given a one-year extension, if I remember correctly reading, but I don't know if the terms of the contract ever
No.
made up, no. So I think what we have to do is get that personnel committee that we had before and start meeting with the superintendent and try and get a contract together. As I
No, he's, this year is interim, and he's already been offered a two-year
Two-year.
contract until,
But the parts of the
terms and
contract are,
oh, I'm sorry, okay, I
Yes, we're
misunderstood,
done.
okay.
so I just want to be able to come up with a
Yeah.
two-year contract.
Right.
Also, if I remember reading, part of it was that there would be an evaluation of the superintendent. And I think that it should be done probably by November, December latest, so that the board can decide on where to go from there. And I don't know how you want to move on it, but I know the Vermont School Board Association, for a small amount of money, like $200-300, will send everybody on this, in the supervised union, not just the SVSU board, but all board members, a like 4 or 5 sheet evaluation on different things. Not only it was leadership and what is he doing, what you're asking him to do, and so forth. And they will collate all of that information and send it back for the evaluation. And I think it's a pretty good deal for the amount of money. And anybody that doesn't have electronics, they can send a hard copy to them and they'll send it back. And
Similar to how you did the first evaluation. Right?
yeah.
If I got this right, I thought we said that we were going to be doing the evaluation at the end of 1 year. I mean, coming here
think
at the
that's
end of
correct,
June. We needed to do it then because we wanted to extend everything out and end and said, okay, you completed a full year. Let's review the year's
Yeah,
activity.
that's what I mean, yeah, it's got to be done by, say, November, so you're going to start it.
It's a long ways. I'm
No, I think
talking,
it should be done by, if I remember correctly, you did one, like, was it October? And then you said you were going to do one before this school year ended. So by no later than June, we would want to do it again, or May.
That's right, no later than May because we said by the end of this school year.
I'm just catching what I read in the minutes.
I'd like to
I
call on
wasn't here.
Joy on that, because she was there when we were going over that. Isn't that basically where we are, Joy?
Yes, accurate, that you had stipulated that you wanted to complete it at the end of this school year.
That's
You've already,
correct.
created that format in conjunction with the dean's meeting with the intention of submitting a similar evaluation for the end of the year after a full year's performance visit.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll do it that way then, all right.
Okay, I got one other
You
thing.
need to form that committee then?
I think it's a personnel committee that we had before.
So as chair, you're going to appoint
Oh,
those.
but, that's right, Cindy was on it, and she wasn't on it before. Can I get that out to the people? I don't have it made up top of my head. I can get it
Yeah,
made
what-
up and send it.
What we've done with other boards is, anyone who wants to serve on that could email you, and then you could get to Mary Lee to form that committee.
But I just about to make sure one from each board, though.
Okay.
Because I'd like to be as fair as I can be, one from Woodford, North Bennington, Shaftesbury, and so forth, so everybody gets input into it. And they can actually go back to their own boards and discuss it, and if we're just going to do this type of evaluation. Okay, so,
Yeah, question over there.
yes,
Deanne.
Leo.
This board need to recognize that we have an SVSU policy committee that goes for the whole district, and it's under this board that's actually charted or the directions to do things, and then everybody comes from the other members. So we do have that, and we need to make sure that everybody realizes that we have it's an SVSU policy committee, and we've continued to meet. So this board needs to recognize that, and I've been chairing it, and Dick's been chairing it, and we now have assistant superintendent working on that committee, and we meet monthly. So I don't know how you want to do it, and you want to have some more people do that. We just decided to continue on with it since we started it from day one. I mean, many years ago, and so don't want anybody to take it for granted that this needs to happen, and it is this board's responsibility to make sure that all the policies and things get done, and that committee get recognized.
Well, I think you work hard, and I think, you can see the results when you bring us back the policies, that you're doing a good job. So I think it'd be nice if you would stay on, really.
Again, Liam brings up this business on the Personnel Committee. I'd like to suggest to the board tonight that the Personnel Committee compile so that all board members will have a complete copy of all the all of the policies of the district. I dare say that there's anybody sitting at this table tonight that could really find all the various policies that we have. So I'm suggesting, not recommending, that the policy committee put together a booklet, Policies of the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union, so that all board members and anybody in the community that wants it can have it and be able to go to it, because I keep pretty good notes, but I can tell you that I have to really search to find various policies, and I think they should be all put together, and then that committee, your committee, could then update it.
Go ahead, Leon.
Speak to.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, I think all of those things are being done right now, and all of the policies on the SVSU website, and they at all the schools, and when they get disseminated, they go to all of the board members, and they go to all the principals and things along that line. There's a whole bunch of things that need to, and they go to the library. So it's the policies are all out there, so if anybody have any questions of trying to find a policy, just go to SVSU and the website, and you hit policies, and they all pop up.
But
even the ones that are for BSD, or maybe one for North Bennington or somebody, they're all sitting right there.
Yeah, but there's, I know what you're saying, Liam, but there's a lot of people that don't have computers, believe it or not. So I'm saying, what's wrong with putting them together, having a booklet that says policies?
Costs money, first of all.
Because they constantly change. I think that's why we're
Well,
keeping them electronically.
Then
but-
the committee should update it.
Okay.
The problem with updating was, if you got them at the library in every other school, you have to rely on somebody at those locations to update them, and they didn't follow through. So we ended up with huge gaps, and
Yeah.
decided that if people went to the library and went online where they could get access to a computer, or a school where they can get access to a computer, they can access those policies. I mean, we can put them together in hard copy, but that won't guarantee that they'll be maintained every time we make a change.
Right.
It has to be changed in that book.
Well, anyway.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go for the Personnel Committee, which will be working on the evaluation. We'll have George from the BSD, Woodford. We have a volunteer.
Yeah.
Okay, France. Shaftesbury. Larry. Ray's from North Bennington. Pownell. Jim, okay. And MAU.
Either one of us.
Leon?
No, he's pointing, yeah,
I think he's got the big one. He's doing negotiations.
okay.
Okay, Leon. Okay, we'll get the time, we'll get that written up and sent out and try and find a date that'll be comfortable for everybody, okay? There's no more positions, right?
No, you should be all set.
Thank you. Okay, and item number 3, financial, treasurer's report. Any questions on the treasurer's report?
I move to accept.
Okay, you have a second?
Second it.
Okay, second. Discussions? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the treasurer's report? Against? Abstain? One abstention. Okay. B, motion, we gotta get a little explanation of this, Rick, or
Frank Irons is here
okay.
tonight to do that.
Silvernet?
Yeah, our telephone contract is up at the end of this fiscal year. So we put out to bid for telephone service coming into the next 3 years. We put out a 3-year bid, excuse me, request for proposal, rather. And Cybernet came in with the lowest bid. We also, last year, we switched to Cybernet for our internet connection as well. And the service that they provided has been really good. Their communication has been excellent when they've had a problem on their end. Their response to problems on our end have been excellent as well. And they came in with the lowest cost. So I'd ask that you award them the contract for the next 3 years, beginning July 1st, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got motion, all right, George, discussion.
I just wanted to ask, Ray, is there some reason why North Bennington is not part of that? Or,
We don't have a school, and the village school already has Cybernet
I see.
as their server
So,
service.
not interested in being part of that?
Already got it.
I'm indirectly part of it because it serves central office, right? So I will vote on it, yes.
Okay, that's all I had, that's my question. I just wanted to
So
be sure.
how much less is it, Frank?
It's, hang on, I gotta get my glasses out here.
Thank you. Never mind, I couldn't see it.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for the people at home,
Yes.
it's $8,745 after the anticipated 60% E-rate reimbursement. And by the way, in case that hasn't been on your radar, E-rate for phone services is going to be going away entirely to the tune of 20% drop each year until it's zeroed out. So last year we had, 78 or 80%. This year we're anticipating 60% reimbursement. Next year it'll be 40% and so forth. So it's that much more important to make sure that we're, trying to get the best deal. And I'm very happy with the service, as I mentioned before. I'm comfortable with the company.
That's going away for the subsidy for the schools. How about on the bills that people get from Comcast and DirecTV and stuff like that? Will that go away too, I wonder?
I'm not 100% sure right now, Ken, but I can find out for you.
Okay. Yes,
Being an alternate, I don't know if I can speak or not.
sure.
One of the questions, who do you have the service with now?
Fair point.
Fair point. And you're switching to this, and basically you're going to all digital phones in all the schools, or
We're not changing the phone systems out. We're changing the service provider to,
just the provider?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the other question.
Okay, any other questions of Frank? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of awarding the contract with Silvernet for the 3 years? Unanimous. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what we just voted on.
Okay, personnel, increase in step.
This is not specifically tied to a teacher. It is a position in the STEP program. Wendy is here to address any question you have. What we're asking for is that position for the teacher, which is currently a .5, will go to a full-time equivalent of 1, and a para position is going to be reduced to .5. My understanding it'd be less than somewhere around a $5,000 budget impact is budgeted for next year. But Wendy, anything else you want to add to that? Or?
No, just here. Matt has some questions.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Just
Ray?
a point of information, why are we reducing the .5 para? Isn't there a possibility you might need that later on? Different person?
To address that, the
person that's currently in the position is funded as a .5 teacher and a .5 para position.
Yep.
So we would reduce the .5 para position
Right.
to make it the full-time
I
teacher.
understood that, but are we not reducing, if we needed another para for half-time or whatever, wouldn't we have to then come back and authorize that position again?
Yes.
Why don't we just leave it authorized in case you need it?
If you want to give me a whole nother half person, I'll be glad to take that. Yeah, so the idea was to make the exchange of the .5 para for the .5 teacher. But
This allows us to apply the money in the para position to the full-time teacher position?
correct.
Well, we could do that anyway, administratively. I don't know if you're going to need one, but we'll have to go through this again if you do need one.
That is correct.
Jim?
We hear over and over again that 80% of our costs are personnel. So if we cut by a half a person, you know, we have to nick away at this employee problem, too many employees, you know, a half a person at a time. So it's a good thing that we eliminate a half a position, because we have to eliminate a lot more to get, you know.
Yeah,
You're not eliminating any.
switching. We're growing.
We're growing, we're increasing the
.5
budget.
teacher.
So again, then we shouldn't,
it's-
we should just leave a half a growth and not a full person growth. That's good enough.
Okay, any other questions?
Call.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor of increasing the teacher from a .5 to 1, raise your hand. Okay, unanimous again. Thank you. Consent agenda. Motion to accept.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
And a second. Okay, any discussion on the minutes, warrants?
Yes.
Yes.
On two parts. Again, on the nomination, I just would like to see at some point more clarity on the salary. On the one item for intensive needs specialists, salary, $15.06. Okay? It doesn't say per hour. I would like that something in that portion to give the annual budgetary impact of the position, just so we're continually educated.
I think that makes sense. In other words, you're saying is it a 40-hour week, 35-hour,
Yeah.
52 weeks?
We don't know what we're voting on as far as
What
the whole
grant-
budget.
Yeah.
And then on the other nomination, it's even more confusion. It's salary 23 and change, then parentheses 56,000 at step M. So I would just think, instead of trying to do a quick explanation here, that just simply whatever this job is going to cost the supervisory union for a year. Okay, we don't really care about the details. Just if it's a $5,000 vote or a $50,000 vote, that's on that. So that's just I brought that up to the superintendent in the past. The other thing is, we're all worried about, last time we met, we were worried about not passing the budgets, and the budget's passed. And now Montpelier is trying to put a cap on our next year's budget type of thing. And again, I'll go back to the 80%. We hear over and over again that the cost of running the supervisory union, all, you know, districts and the supervisory union, is 80% personnel. And we sat here, you know, thinking, oh, we might have to lay one person off, or two persons off, or three persons off. You know, in my opinion, you know, the way to do this, and everybody from the Secretary of State on down, everybody knows, okay, we're overstaffed, all right? And no one, that's the big elephant in the room, and no one wants to pick out Joe Schmo and says your job is done. The way to do this as painlessly as possible is when the resignations and retirements come up, is that maybe the Personnel Committee take a harder look at them. And even though they're budgeted, because if they're budgeted, we just roll them over. If the person is out of the picture, we're not going to hurt anybody, that may be the time to take a harder look at that position. So all I want to say is, on the resignations and retirements, I would like to see this board somehow establish some sort of procedure where every month, okay, we don't just automatically refill these positions, okay, as they get retired or leave, okay, we should take a hard look at maybe not filling them, or maybe going to a .5 from a 1, that type of thing. That's all, thank you.
I think Jim does have a point, though, about if we put down that the person's going to make $15 an hour, it would be nice to know how many hours they're going to work a week, and if they're going to be just a regular school year employee. And then, I mean, we can do that calculation
Well, I
ourselves.
don't think we should have, I think it's, when it comes to the board, it should be, it just should be what the job is worth per year. As simple as that. So we know there's 2 nominations here. One, we have no idea how much it is per year, and the other one may be $20,000 or $50,000. Someone has to explain to us what that means. I'm just thinking, we just get in the habit of every time we do a nomination form, what the value of this job is. So maybe we're thinking, well, maybe we don't need that right now, if it's a big number.
Okay.
I'm asking the superintendent to look at that. I've asked before.
Dave?
Just to that point, the 2 nominations that we have in front of us tonight, are they filling, maybe just a little background on whether they've been vacant for a long time, a short time, or are they new positions?
One says new position. Intense needs specialist is new.
Yeah. Joy, do you want to, yeah, Joy can answer that.
Sure, yeah.
All right,
No,
she's
I'm
here,
happy
since she's here.
to mention that. The teacher of the deaf position was for a new student who moved into the district mid-year. So that was to meet a need that we did not have anybody qualified to provide the services that were listed in an IEP. And the second, as well, is a one-to-one para with a student in a new situation.
A question for Joy. Now, if this changes where the deaf student goes on somewhere else, do we lay off the teacher?
If we don't have a need for a position, we don't fill it.
Right.
No, but I'm saying, but the position's filled. We're going to fill a position now, and what if the need evaporates in a year? Do we continue the position, or do we?
We have the ability to eliminate a position if there is no need, and we do.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Jim, your point's well taken, but it also needs to go back to every board, not, we only control a small portion of the hiring here at the SU. So MAU and Pownell, anywhere that's having retirements needs to, if that's the philosophy that we want to adopt, and I do believe it should be, that we should be evaluating the need to replace every position, especially as our numbers decline. I mean, we're not declining as rapidly as other parts of the state, but we certainly are. And that we're hearing this from the Agency of Education. The Secretary of Education is expressing the same sentiments that you are, that think long and hard before you fill a position with a retirement, that generated from a retirement.
Let it begin with you.
It does.
Yes.
I just want to address one of the resignations in the packet. We're always worried about our budgets, and especially special education budgets. One of the folks that was in the packet is Karen Burnell. I guess I'd like to say that I think she's managed her staff efficiently. She's been with us for a long, long time, and we don't often deal with resignations of people that have been around for that long. She's got the respect of her staff, and I think she's done an efficient job financially and socially with the folks she works with, and I just wanted to make that mention.
You're here. And I can say that when I go to Vermont School Board Association meetings up in Montpelier, and we get various presentations when we have them from early ed and so forth. I was talking with the lady up there and mentioned Karen's name, and she said that she's one of the top ones in the state that does her job. So, I mean, we're lucky we have someone who's well qualified, and we're unlucky because we're going to be losing her.
So we're not going to accept the resignation.
Maybe we should not accept her resignation.
There we go.
Take that off the nomination.
Keep the good one going.
Oh, but thank you.
I did
Thank you.
offer her to rescind that, didn't I?
So
We really appreciate it, and I'm sure the children and families too. Okay, anything else on the consent agenda? Yes, Fran.
On the warrants, voucher 2010, page 28, It's the NCC, New England Center for Children. It's Molly Stark, and it's $31,000. What exactly is that?
It's a contracted service we have with New England Centers for Children to run our autism program within the BSD.
Okay.
And that's a monthly, regular monthly payment,
Oh, is it?
10 months a year.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, Larry?
Concerning the same voucher for 2010, on page 40, Village School of North Bennington, there's a list of reimbursements. What do those address then?
That is the special ed services that the village school provides for North Bennington graded school district students.
So it's just a pass-through?
They're very similar to NECC. They are contracted by the SU. The SU, as the LEA, is responsible to provide the special ed services for the students within North Bennington graded school district. Those students that attend the village school, they deliver those services on our behalf. They bill us for them, and we pay them for them.
That's why they show up month after month?
Yeah.
I have another question on a different voucher. 22, it's a single item voucher. It's to the amount of $10,844.41. It's looks like a payroll amount to one individual. Just curious why that.
That would be a judgment that was paid.
That was amount additionally owed to that individual?
That's a judgment for a settlement that was
Settlement
paid.
cost.
And as long as you're still there.
It's amazing I can handle these off the top of my head. I haven't had to go to the box yet. You're done?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none? All in favor? Consent agenda? Unanimous?
No, sorry.
No?
Abstain.
Abstain, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, next item, superintendent handed out a copy of the calendar for 15.
So Article 29.7 of the teacher's contract allows the Southwest Vermont Education Association to form a committee inclusive of teachers to look at the calendar. They opted not to do that this year. Instead, we met with the union officers and gave them the draft of the contract. As I'm sure you're well aware, this really is a calendar I have to meet with. It's a regionally built calendar. I have to meet with the regional superintendents. We're supposed to structure the calendar for the region around the tech center calendars. There's two in our area because we share students with Arlington, that some go to Stafford and some come here to the Career Development Center in Bennington. And the idea of why the calendar, as directed by the Agency of Education, is supposed to be regionally generated is that we minimize the amount of days that students might be out. We say, like, we start at different times than they do, particularly the technical education students, because if the technical education center is closed here, those students in Arlington have nowhere to go that day. So that's the whole idea behind building regional calendars. So this calendar before you is a result of meetings with the officers of the association, as well as with the regional superintendents from Rutland on down.
Question.
Yes, Lon.
So that, I mean, when you said regional, and it said, I ran into this and I didn't realize that the region doesn't go past Bennington, it don't go to Whitingham or Twin Valley area.
No, it does not, no.
So
no. Their region is with Brattleboro.
So it splits the state, the state is actually cut in half and then split.
Yes.
When it's down at the bottom here, so that, I mean, we do a lot of things that go along that line.
We do, but the way they define the regional superintendent's group that we belong to is the Southwest Vermont, so it's Rutland on down, and we are as Whitford would be as far east as we go, because, as you said, Wilmington is, as you said, in Twin Valley, goes with because that's where they send their students. Even though sport-wise, we do a lot with them.
Right.
Yes, Ray?
So is there consideration given to getting the 4 in-service days that are inside the calendar year when students could be in school out? Is that still contractually?
It is
in our
still
contract?
contractual, as you might know, because negotiations has been in public. That is an issue that's been discussed, to look at it. My understanding is we have one of the longest, that is part of the problem with the alignment. We have one of the longest school years in the state. Students are required to go 175, our students go 180. That's not really the issue as much as how many full-day professional development days are in our calendar. So it is reflective of that, because there's nothing that's changed in negotiations at this time.
Yeah. Then I have another question about some of the half-days that appear in here. Like, I'm just looking in November and December, there's 2 half-days within a week. The 20th, a Friday, and the 25th, a Wednesday. I could understand Wednesday. I'm not sure I understand the Friday before it. And then in December, you have
2 half.
you have holidays. Sorry, that's holidays. I'm looking at the wrong symbol.
Yeah.
There are a lot of symbols on.
Yes. it
But you
can
do
be.
have 2 half-days in December, right?
Yeah.
8, 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah, right.
Those are 2 half-days.
That's right.
Yeah, for parent-teacher conferences, yeah.
Okay. Both in November as well?
December.
Why is there a half-day on that Friday? The 20th.
20th.
It's also symbol K8 end of trimester. Some of those half-days can be hard on working parents.
Understand.
Yes, Dave.
That's if it is not listed as a parent-teacher conference day, then those are half-days for professional development.
Jim,
Yes, Dave.
just given what you said about the various parties who were involved in the discussions,
Yeah.
some of whom are not, our district,
Yeah.
and understanding there's various constituencies, parents and teachers, in your opinion, is this the best calendar for students?
My personal opinion is that we have too many full-day professional development days that lengthens this year. So as far as what's best for students and staff, like one of the things that we're running into this year, even though we only had 4 snow days, we're going to go late in June again, which bumps into the big statewide professional development conference that most of our teachers participate, a lot of our teachers participate in, the BEST conference, and that's going to impact their ability to go. And here we are, when we go back and look at more traditional calendars, when we used to go start school after Labor Day, here we are starting well before Labor Day, and we're still impact late in June. And do I think that certainly quality education takes place in late June, but I do think it's impacted by the weather, and for sure. So probably if there was a way to compress, get the students 180 days in quicker, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, just, 4 years ago, 3 years ago? 4 years ago, anyway, the calendar, the school year started, classes started after Labor Day.
It also depends where Labor Day falls that year, so it could have been a late, I wasn't here, it could have been a late Labor Day that year, like on the 7th, so of course it would have started before. I mean, if it was on the 1st, we would have started after maybe, yeah.
Does anybody ever bring up canceling the winter break? I'm serious.
It was discussed at great length this year in the regional superintendents. The difficulty is, under the current state statute, we can't really do that by ourselves. I mean, it's one of those statutes that I don't know what the teeth is, what the Secretary of Education would do to us and say, we're going to cancel February and April vacation, have 1 week in March. We could do that if everyone in our catchment area, particularly Arlington and Manchester, if they would all align their calendars with ours, then we would probably okay. But to go it alone, the Age of Education would have an issue with us. Again, I don't know what the ramifications, other than a letter of reprimand, I don't know what we would get. I don't think it would jeopardize funding, but the statute does require that we build a unified calendar.
So we're starting on.
And we'd only pick up 4 days if we did that, because remember, one of the days in the April vacation is a holiday. I mean, in the February vacation is a holiday. So if we did a March vacation, it would pick up 4, but not as many, not the full 5.
So we start on August 27th and end on June 20th. That's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're, I was going to mention this in my superintendent's report, but I'll bring it up now. And, I could be jinxing this, but we're at 4 snow days, so I am seriously looking at recommending to the boards that right now our students are coming to school on Monday the 22nd of June. They got to come back for that Monday. My recommendation is going to be that as long as we don't have another snow day, that we end school for students on that Friday, bring our staff in on the 22nd. That way any staff members that have registered to go to the best conference can go. Staff members will still work and be in the building, but and so the students will be at 179 days rather than 180. It's not going to be a financial impact. There's no penalty from the state because we are already over the required days. So still, of course, driving here tonight, and they're like, we're certainly not out of winter yet. So, but I hope that I won't have to call another snow day. So, and why am I considering doing that? Because the spread from start to stop is too long, and it's not just the vacations; it's also the amount of professional development days, which I would love to address in negotiations, and I hope that we do.
Any more questions on the calendar? Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the calendar?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Okay, no further discussion. All in favor of adopting the calendar as presented? Okay, against? Abstain?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all that work. Okay, no policies. Now the superintendent's report.
So we have no policies coming up, tonight.
Yeah.
But I did want to say that.
Okay, go ahead.
On the policies, if you don't mind, one of the policies that are coming through is the attendance policy, and I mentioned that at several other meetings. One of the things that the district has to look at is student attendance and graduation rate at the other level at Mount Anthony and so forth along that line. So that policy asks that all of the member districts submit to SVSU a record of attendance for the 6 months, at least semi-annually. So it's time for that now, that all the districts should be saying what do they got for the number of students that are without absent, being absent. Those that are absent maybe want to break those out to how many days are they absent on a grid or something along that particular line, so that we can make sure that actions are being taken equally throughout all of the member districts when it comes to trying to make sure kids are attending school. And so at the last meeting, we were talking, our last policy meeting, Donna Leap was going to look at trying to standardize the regs for that policy and saying, this is what kind of information all of the districts should submit so that everybody can see it, and they should submit it to SVSU so that everybody can then now have some information that here's the total picture of what the kids are doing in terms of going to school. One of the things that we wanted to make sure is we recognize students that are in attendance all year without being absent, and that doesn't happen all the time at all of the schools, because we do have a lot of that attend in school and don't miss a day, and we need to know that. And then we have some that are never here, and then we have problems about promotion and they run in the streets or whatever along that line, and we have a lot of those. And so if that number is high, we need to be talking about from a district-wise, what do we need to be doing? So
On your policies, in the high school, there's a required certain amount of days. If the kids are beyond that, they lose credit, right?
that's the regs part for the high
But
school.
there's nothing like
and-
that in the grammar schools.
Yes, it is. It's one for the elementary schools as well, along that line. In the middle school and the high school, they're not all the same, and that's one of the things that, when we had the policy discussion, the elementary level is a little bit more languid, I think, in terms of kids, in terms of
Attendance.
retaining them in their attendance, versus the middle school and the high school was the one, I think, was had a different way of looking at it. So one of the things that somebody was asking questions, I think it was Dave Frederiksen, about the regs, and we'll get a chance to see what the regs look like for everybody, but what the policy does is have you bring the information out so that everybody can see it. Okay. Thanks.
Go ahead, Eric. Okay. One of the things I want to talk to you about tonight is our pre-K expansion grant. You have heard that we signed, at previous meetings, that we signed a memorandum of understanding with the state that we will pursue this as a sub-grantee, but it is subject to a final MAU that would reflect board approval. The deadline for deciding whether we want to participate is fast approaching, probably more like the end of April. So I asked Karen to come tonight, and by doing that, you got to hear wonderful things about yourself, Karen. So, yeah, very humbly, as you always are. And we do have concerns about this grant, and we want to put some things on the radar. Karen has some papers to pass out for you. I have to make a recommendation to the board on what we're going to do. Are we going to accept this? We're going to get into it. We have financial concerns. Some of you have heard me mention this in your own individual board meetings, that what happens when this grant runs out. What's the plan for year 5? What's the impact? How can we put students who are not at 200% of the poverty level, can we put them into the program? We've asked the state whether we can pilot in the smaller portion of this grant for the first year to see if, is this something we want to really get involved to? We keep getting a lot of answers back. They don't know yet, because they are literally writing the regs as we go. So I don't know if that's enough introduction for you, Karen, on where we are, but she put I asked her to put a fact sheet together for you on the grant, so you have a bullet sheet on the preschool expansion grant that tells you the components of it, and then thank you. Did everybody get one?
Yeah, and I was going to talk about the questions. I didn't do that as a handout, just so you know. So the fact sheet that I put together really is taken, a lot of it's taken directly from some information that we've gotten from the governor's office and from the federal write-up about this grant. So I'm just going to quickly go through it so that you understand what we're talking about. It's a little bit more detailed than we've had in the past because, detail is trickling to us. So the scope of the whole purpose of the grant is to create or expand high-quality preschool programs or slots in high-need communities. And Bennington actually has been identified as a high-need community, and so that brings this opportunity to the SVSU. So all towns in the SVSU can benefit from it. The target population are 4-year-old children, and the 4-year-old children have to be at or below 200% of the federal poverty rate, and you've heard that piece before. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. We have some options, so we can create new slots that haven't been previously funded through our, the public pre-K, and that would be the ones that are funded by the state education funds, or we can do improved slots. So we can take slots that currently exist and add some of the quality components to it that I'm going to talk to you about that are listed on here. So we have some options. The components that are listed here about high-quality programs is the federal definition. Our state has a definition about quality, and this is the federal definition. And you can see that many of them are tied to Vermont language. So they've taken the state has taken the federal definition and attached it to things that make sense to us in Vermont, which talks about Act 166. One of the interesting things here is that right now, if we were to do a partner program through public pre-K, the partner programs in the community would have to have a licensed teacher, or the school district, as you know, we provide the licensed teacher to be able to build capacity in those slots. If you were to participate in this grant, we would not be able to provide the teacher. The facility would have to have that licensed teacher on their own in their classrooms. The teacher salaries have to be comparable, so people out in the public sector or the public sector / private sector, right now their salaries are less than teachers in the public system, and part of this grant would fund them to come up to the same salaries as our grid. In fact, the detail behind this is if you had a facility that was located in Williston, then you would get the Williston teacher salary. If you were in RSU, you would use our teacher grid, and they would get paid off the teacher grid. And so that is something to try to maintain that high quality in the private sector. High quality professional development. A full day program. This is a new piece. They want the children to be in school full day, full year. So, and it would have to be equivalent to a student who is in kindergarten to grade 3. So if the children are going to school from 8 to 3:30, which many of them are in the Bennington School District, then the children participating in this grant would have to also go to school 8 to 3:30. Same, it has to be the equivalent. They want inclusive classrooms, both from disability, also from economics, et cetera, culture, ethnicity, evidence-based curriculum that's aligned with the VELS, making sure that we're really individualizing and meeting kids' needs. Some of these things we're already doing. There's a few that we're not. They want us to pay attention to evidence-based health and safety standards. As you know, you've heard me say before that our early childhood programs regulations are often greater than the school districts because we're regulated through a couple of departments. And then also making sure that we're doing program evaluations to make sure that we're meeting the students' need and we're continuing to improve our programs to continue to make sure that they're getting making as much progress as possible. The comprehensive services for children, I pulled that out so that you could see the definition of what the federal government is saying about comprehensive services, but that is also really in that whole list of must-dos. So the comprehensive services for children are things like screenings, and we do already do hearing, vision, dental, and health. We don't do mental health, although we do a social emotional checklist. We do make appropriate referrals. Responsive family engagement, so really strengthening what we do with families. Nutrition, we already do coordinated special ed services, assuring that children get a lot of physical activity, and then identifying and locating community support services needed by the family or child. That could be like, they need to know where the food bank is. They need help filling out an insurance application. They might need help finding a home. It could be anything to support the family. So again, this is the federal definition, and this is the federal overview. Now, we have had an opportunity, Jim and Rick and I have had the opportunity to attend a meeting that we reported to you about previously. And most recently, Jim and I sat in on about an hour and a half, I think, conference call about this grant. And we've gotten literature. I've read through all the literature that we've had. Jim and I have talked, Rick and I have talked. And we have a lot of questions. So, and I could tell you what our questions are if you'd like to know what they are, because we're going to be sending our question list to Allison Richards, who is actually I have to read this because I never get it right, the Deputy Chief of Staff and Director of Governmental Affairs out of the Governor's Office. And Ally is our liaison.
Yeah.
So we are going to be sending Ally a list of our questions because I haven't been able to wrap my head around this grant, to be honest. And part of it is because we need the information. And when Jim and I were on the conference call, some of these questions came up in the field, and they said, oh, that's a really good question. We're going to be doing a technical assistance call with the government, and we'll get the answers. They haven't gotten the answers yet. So let me tell you what some of our questions are. About proration. So they talk about classrooms of, and if I'm getting too long, just cut me off. But they talk about having integrated classrooms, but yet they haven't been clear about the proration of how to. So if you have a class of 10 children and 2 of them meet the quality, that are participating to 100% of poverty and all the quality indicators, you can use this federal grant for 2, but the other 8 have to come out of our local funds. So because they're promoting inclusion, the state would like to see the federal government's definition of what that proration is. We need a definition and guidance around supplanting. Because if we're going to get creative and we're going to shift funds around, which in our program, we've got so many different funding sources, we've done that for years. But we have to make sure that we're always in compliance. So we need some guidance from them about what supplanting really means. We need guidance from them about the identification of children who are 200% of poverty. Our free and reduced hot lunch, our reduced hot lunch rate is 135 of poverty. If you are eligible for what's called 3 squares, or that's the new lingo for food stamps, that's 185 of poverty. But we haven't found, and I've scoured and I've asked finance to look, we have not found a tool to measure that last 15%, getting between 185 and 200. So we need guidance from them around that. Let's see, the other issue is around auditing. We've got our own independent external auditors that do, check our books every year. And then we're going to have the state and federal auditors. What kind of documentation do we need to assure that the income verification happens for families? Isn't that now part of our responsibility? Because Rick can speak about this because it comes out of his office. We do that now for free and reduced hot lunch, and it's a really long process. So how does that happen, and what would the standards be for an auditor? And I know our counterparts in Manchester had a meeting today, and that came up from their team too. What would we need for auditing? The other is, what liabilities do we incur if there's any misrepresentation or misinterpretation of any of the eligibility? Either we've made the wrong call or the family hasn't applied because they think that they're not 200% of poverty. We have that happen now with free and reduced hot lunch. Some families may not apply because they say, oh, I'm not eligible, when in fact they might be eligible. So what is our liability there? 4 more questions. Would we be awarded? So this is an interesting grant. They don't say you can apply for X amount of dollars. They say, build your project and tell us how much money you want. So it's a different twist. So if we put in a proposal, which we think we need for SVSU, are we going to get 100% of the money that we need to run the project? And will they assure that we have that 100% of the project over the 4-year period? Okay. So, sustainability, what happens in year 5? This is a 4-year project. Right now, it's a $30 million grant. The state of Vermont's getting about 7 this year, and it's going to grow slightly over 4 years. What happens in year 5? So in the conference call that we had, they did tell us that they were going to hire a fiscal person that would specialize in helping school districts and others with the sustainability questions that everybody has and the anxieties that everybody has about the sustainability. And when I asked if we could meet with that person has not been employed yet.
Which is an important point.
Which is an important point.
That they're asking us to sign on to something that, because they, and why they haven't hired that person is they don't have the money.
Right. The money
And
hasn't.
our last understanding is they haven't voted to accept the money.
Right. It has to go to the joint fiscal committee. The legislator has to approve the money coming in, and it hasn't been approved, so they can't
Vermont or federal?
advertise. What?
Vermont or federal?
Vermont.
Vermont, yeah.
So they can't advertise for positions until they have the money in, and, you know. So that's one of our questions too. And then another question is, could we begin implementation in FY17 instead of 16, when we might be in a better position to understand what is going on? And then the last one in is just guidance around allowable transportation costs, because transportation costs are allowed, but they're not sure completely what that means. So we have a lot of questions, and those are just, you know, Jim's questions and Rick's questions, my questions, but we have a lot of questions.
Karen?
Sure.
I want, Jim. I've got 3 or 4 questions, but let me ask this. First,
I would like to write them down because we could put them in an
no,
email.
that's all right.
It'll be on tape.
Just in general, but I'd just like to ask, Rick, can I ask you, financial obligations to the district on this grant? Can I start there?
I have no clue. I mean, it's classic information coming out of Montpelier lately, is that we want you to do all these programs and we'll figure it out later and tell you how we're going to take care of it. I have some serious concerns about the comprehensive services that I think Karen passed around to you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of traps in here that you need to be extremely careful of. They are pushing social services more and more into the schools.
Yeah.
If you look at the last bullet under there, and Karen talked about this a little bit, we're going to have to hire a full-time person to help people find housing, buy groceries. What is the state social services supposed to be doing? They're offloading state responsibilities to the school systems. And
So they can use federal funds to do it.
You know,
That's what it sounds like.
It's an awful trap. You've got no money in your budget next year for any of this stuff. They told us point blankly, unless you've heard something recently, that it's only kids that are 200% of poverty and below. So any kids that are above that don't qualify. So either you got to tell them, I'm sorry, you can't come in the door today, or you have to leave at noon and the other kids are going to stay for the rest of the day, or the local district's got to figure out how to pay for those costs. It's a trap that scares me to death.
And that was one of my questions about the supplanting, because if you could acquire funds for a population X, that frees up those funds for population Y, because it doesn't feel good to me to only provide a full-day program for one group of children and not for the rest. That just doesn't feel good, especially when they're asking for inclusive programs. All of our children, for different reasons, could
From a
benefit from that.
discriminatory standpoint, I don't know how we're a public education entity. I don't know how we could say, no, you can't show up. I think they can, and we have to pay the bill.
No, it's not required, so that would be how they would get around it. It's not required.
Okay, my next question would be to Jim. Jim, in the event that the supervisory votes not to take this, what does that do?
Well, that is also one of our questions for them, because the individual school districts could vote to do it. You know, Bennington BSD could decide that they wanted to participate. I mean, the questions are many, yet we will get some criticism from our community partners when we don't, or if we don't accept this grant, because there certainly is a need for this. But the question I have is really the sustainability of it and the funding of, and adding a whole level of administration to us that we don't have the capacity to oversee right now. So, but as I've talked to other superintendents who are also sub-grantees, they're all saying they're doing it. But I have great caution right now. But, there are still partners like Head Start is also their own sub-grantee, so they're going to move forward with it. But and everything from capacity, do we have physical space for these programs? Is there enough space in our partners that we can do this? I think, Karen, at one point you estimated we might have, 85 students that this could involve? That's a lot to bring in. And this is a real initiative from the governor. This universal pre-K and expanded pre-K are really, his baby, and from as an educator, I can't argue that. And as I've said before, I repeat it, in my heart, I think this is what we should be doing as an educator. But in my head, as a superintendent, with having to step back and look at the big picture, I'm very concerned, and I don't understand how they can push us on this end of April deadline when there are so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, the anticipated start date for funds coming into the district would be July 1. So that's why they're really trying to pull everything together. And just to piggyback on what Jim was saying, you've known me long enough that I like to create things that make sense for children. And I can't, after exploring with Rick's office, the whole population, I don't even know who these kids are and where they are, because we don't have a mechanism right now to get that economic information from families. And the state is going to come up with a form for us to use to be able to get the income from families, but we don't have that right now. So one, we don't know who they are and where they are, and then there's so many unanswered questions that I can't even begin to wrap my head around an idea, and that makes me a little nervous.
Might it not be smart on our part to wait a year to get clarification?
That's one of the questions that we asked. One of the questions in the list is, can we delay a year and still be eligible to join the grant? They haven't answered that. They haven't answered that yet.
Jim?
A real simple question. We have, you say target 4-year-olds. We have public pre-K now for 4-year-olds, 10.5 hours a week, right?
10 hours a week.
Whatever, and it's working, and my grandson's in there, and it's wonderful. So we have that. What is this getting us?
This would get us full day, 5-day a week services for children.
It would mirror exactly what's happening in kindergarten.
So
same hours that your kindergartens are here, and
that's
paid for through the grant.
I don't think that's that. I'm up to 10 grandkids and a lot of kids, and they've all gone to some sort of pre-K. And my grandson was going to Learning Tree at the hospital before we started with this, and it was 3 days a week. Our family has settled on through experience that 2 or 3 days a week when they're 3 or 4 years old, get some used to it. That's babysit. At 3 and 4 years old, a full day, 5 days a week is babysitting. And that's it's another child care. And what Rick says, if we're calling it education, then we got to do everybody.
Well, one of the reasons we're bringing it to you tonight, we don't need a vote from you tonight, but we had to start this discussion. We want you to be aware of what we're dealing with and the meetings that we've been having. And Karen and I have, you've been in my office as much as anybody the past 2 weeks as we have been really trying to get our head around this and decide what we're going to recommend and how we're going to move forward. So we're going to have discussions with the other boards that you're all members of. So we decided this was the best place to start tonight and to get your comments on it and your feedback to help us guide what our recommendation will be.
Yeah, and if you do have specific questions, I am going to be sending this off probably tonight or first thing tomorrow morning to the governor's office, to Ally, asking her to respond to our questions.
And we are gonna go to a regional meeting again with her. They were up in Rutland today, wanted to come down here, but I wasn't in the district. I was at the superintendent's meeting, so it just wouldn't make sense. And they gave us pretty short notice at that meeting too, so, like 2 days' notice that, are you going to be around to come, we're in the area, come down. So they have other regional meetings that we're going to have to attend and see what they're rolling out.
Leon, did you have a question?
I have some. We're talking about the program, but I hear a lot more in terms of finance than the benefit and what the problems are that we're dealing with right now. So I don't care how long we put it off, we got some real problems, and this thing is supposed to say that we're trying to get educational quality to those kids that need it the most before they get too old, and fix it so that we won't have to spend this money later on. So if we start to look at things like that, I think we may be able to move forward. We know where they are. When you say we don't know where they're coming from, we know when they hit the first grade or the pre, where they came from. I don't think it's no secret that we're gonna get more from that area or that place or that location or that district or whatever. So we know where they are, and the percentages, whether it's growing or staying the same, we can almost project out here. So it's no secret what we have coming to us. We just need to go ahead and start trying to react. And those programs, yes, I agree. Other people are paying for them. Yes, we put grandkids out because some of us are able to afford that and put kids in those programs. They're getting it. This is the kids in targeting populations of those that are in the poverty areas that cannot get all of these benefits that we're talking about. And that's what we need to start thinking, that if we don't start doing something to reduce down the cost coming into the elementary level and the continuation of that cost right on up through the top, it ain't gonna get better, it's just gonna keep getting worse.
And Leon, your comments echo what we're hearing from our community partners on this too. They're very much in favor of us, from the feedback I've been getting of us participating.
And I don't think anybody here doesn't want to do what's right for kids. It's just there's so many questions, it's hard to move forward, to be fiscally responsible and efficient and effective when there's so many unknown questions. And when you say, we know where the children are, generically, you're right. We do know where the children are generically, but we don't know children 1, child 2, child 3, child 4. It's not like I can go and say, oh yeah, you're eligible. I know generically, but we don't have a system yet, unless we have a parent fill out a form and provide proof of income and say, oh yeah, well, you can. So the state is working to try to figure out how to identify.
And the state will require that form.
They are going to require that. So we do, you're right, we do generically know where they come from, but not specifically.
Dave?
So district-wide, we know what percent of the students are eligible for free and reduced? 30?
In the early childhood programs this year, across school-based and community partners, we're at 72% of the population served is eligible for free or reduced.
So that's 185% of the initiative.
Reduced is 135 and free is 185.
So,
well, actually,
Reverse.
It's the other way around, sorry.
So would it be accurate to say that there'd be at least that many, at least that big a percentage would be eligible?
If the trend continues, because that number is based on early data from this year, so we've got a group moving out and a group moving in, so. we have that caveat, yes.
My other question was, and just a refresher, I guess, of the 7 million that's potentially available for Vermont, is every SU in the state eligible to get a piece of that? Or, I mean, how much of it potentially is there for us?
That's a good question, as Karen addressed. They haven't given us a budget. There's no earmark specifically for us. It's like, write your proposal for what you think you need to run the program for the students you have identified, and then they'll review it and let us know what we're eligible.
Do we know how many other SUs?
How many have they, no, I really don't, I don't know how many. It's, not everyone is not every SU in the state is a sub-grantee, I know that, but I don't know how many, because it is a good question. You know, are we eligible for 500,000 a year, or is it 25,000 a year?
Well, and then, Jim, is this a program where they give you the money up front and then 3 years later withdraw that and you got the program?
Oh, yeah, 4 years. 5 years.
Yeah.
4 years, 5 years later.
Oh, yeah, the money's only for 4 years. They've said that right up front. Yeah.
But David, to spin off your
Mandates.
free and reduced lunch,
Stupid.
you know, it would have been perfectly logical and intelligent and reasonable, but remember, this came out of Washington and Montpelier, to set the structure at, follow the free and reduced at 185%.
Right.
But they came up with some logic to say, oh, no, we're going to go to 200%. So, and we had no mechanism to measure, so if 70%.
We've never measured that number before.
So 70% of our population is free and reduced, we know those, we can easily identify those, that's piece of cake. It happens all the time.
All this
Now,
extra,
how do we find that other 15? Now, for all we know, probably not likely, but for all we know, the other 30% of the population fall within that 85 to 200%, maybe, I don't know, maybe only 5 kids fall in there. But we're going to have to do a great deal of effort to try to find those kids. We don't know where they are. We've got to find those kids, we've got to verify those kids, and then see if they want in the program. So,
if I could suggest some, because we don't need to vote, and we got a couple other things we got to discuss. You've heard where we are at. If you want to email us more of your concerns, or call us, or even come in and talk to us if there's something that you really particularly could help us as we learn more, we'd appreciate that. And
You're going to bring this to each individual board?
hey, it's going to have to go that way, yeah.
all this exercise, okay, is to identify 10% of the 4-year-olds who don't qualify. Because, I mean, this is upside down and backwards. This is crazy. I mean, if all 4-year-olds, I'm in favor of all 4-year-olds get this. All this comes down to is maybe 10% of the kids don't qualify? That's
And I just.
a lot of wasted
I
effort.
don't know, it could be anywhere from.
Well, if we're starting at 70,
It could be anywhere from 1 to 30%.
yeah, but it's a small percentage. That's kind of, that really sounds discriminatory to me.
If I could just,
Reverse
make,
discrimination, yeah.
if I could just make one last statement. The reason why it's so hard for the state is this is a brand-new grant in Washington, so there's no template.
And after the 4, it'll be the
It's a
3.
trickle effect from
Oh, sure.
Washington to the state, so it's, anyway, it's a brand new, other grants in Washington have have a template and have operating process procedures and all that, but they're creating them, so, and then it's coming to us.
Okay, one more comment, then we have to close up.
The part that confuses me is that we have a lot of preschool type education going out there with our daycares and stuff in the areas, which I assume is what you're talking about when you say partners. They're usually applying for grants and stuff that does similar things. Is this in addition to the grants that they're applying for as well? So what happens if that group is teaching X number of the 4-year-olds in the manner that we're talking about? How does that lessen the numbers that we have to deal with?
We can, in our plan, we can utilize the partners, and they become a contractor, just like in public pre-K. So if they had 5 4-year-olds that qualified, we could work out an agreement with them, and they would be the provider of that service for the SU if they met all the criteria.
Okay, And the other comment I had is, we can keep hearing on the news how they're reducing social service costs by laying off staff. I think what they're doing is giving you guys the opportunity to start that program so you can identify people.
Exactly, it's a trap they're putting into.
Okay, Superintendent, we're going to move on.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. We're going to take them all into consideration. I appreciate it. Also in my report, I want to give you a couple of updates where I think we are on the House Education Bill and what's going to happen with the Senate and what we're hearing and what you might be hearing. But before I do that, this Monday, Central Office is another legislative breakfast. We have commitment so far from at least 3 of our representatives are going to be present, including Alice from the House Education Committee. So, as you may be aware, that she did, as the House bill came out of their committee, she did vote against that, but it did go out onto the floor. The 2% cap in per pupil cost or total spending is still currently in the bill from both the School Board Association and the Superintendent's Association. You know, what I'm hearing is that the feeling is that the cap will not survive in the Senate, but, you know, don't pick whatever analogy you want, don't count your chickens before they hatch, or, you know, that's anybody's guess what's going to happen there. The bill will hit the House floor next week, or it is scheduled at the floor, and then at that point it will transition over to the Senate, where it's going to become a marked up bill. And the timeline that we've been given right now is that the Senate will have that out by the end, no later than the end of April, which will give them about 3 weeks before the end of session, and that's when it's going to get fast and furious. Interesting, the Agency of Education told the superintendents that they have been asked by the governor to not release any of their opinions yet on the details of the bills because they're all over the place. So no, don't give any impact statements from the Agency of Education. They continue to look at the broader strokes of the bill and wait till the details are actually ironed out before they issue any impact or position statements on the bill. It is, if you haven't contacted your representative or senator, it's not too late to do it. There are a couple of other bills that deal with education bills. One that deals with contract negotiations, the right to strike versus which they currently have the right to strike, and whether that will go away. The report that I'm getting from the Superintendent's Association is that bill is probably not going to change. Nothing's going to change. Vermont NEA is lobbying pretty hard on keeping the status quo. And the other is making not reporting of a dangerous child situation a felony, which both everybody from the governor on down is against. That bill is coming out of the Senate, and you know, we're already mandated reporters, and to make it a felony, if you don't, the fear is that this DCF will be overwhelmed with over-reporting, because who would risk it? And so it's not, I get where the idea comes from, but I think we'd have, you know, multiple reports going out from each building every day, just because you might be aware of something, so to cover yourself, you're going to make that report. So the good news that did come out is the whole dual enrollment. One of our concerns had been on dual enrollment. The cost was going to be passed on this second course at the community college onto the local budget. So the Agency of Education announced that they have put it in the line item into their budget next year to cover 50% of it. So there's already $600,000 to cover in the general fund budget to cover the one course. Second course will be covered in the Agency of Education budget. So the good news for local budgets it's no longer, all subject to the budgets being passed, this will not be an unfunded mandate. So one could reason that they're getting the word for it. So that 1.2 million, they estimate is enough to pay for every student to take 2 courses at the rate that they've contracted with the community college with. So that's progress. That's good news, because that was one of our unfunded mandates. So that's pretty much my update for this evening. So Monday, 7:45 central office, if you're interested. And I'll end with, I will repeat the words that, because we'll have more time to thank Karen. She isn't leaving yet, but her resignation is in the packet. And I am not kidding. Some of my apprehension about this preschool expansion grant is the person that I'll need most to help shepherd and guide us through this is leaving. So that is part of the apprehension. So, okay.
We'll bring her back as a consultant.
Amen.
We've discussed that.
I second that motion.
Jim mentioned most of the things I was going to mention is that bill about because I get the VSBA every other day, they send me stuff. They weren't so negative as Jim is on that. It was an 8-3 vote. It came out of the House to eliminate strikes and eliminate imposition of contracts. I think it's a pretty fair deal, which means basically if you're not settling contract, just keep talking until you finally do settle it. But I think that would be something good. 8-3 votes, one of the negative votes was a representative from Shaftesbury. I don't know why, but it seemed like a logical type of move to get away, to eliminate the strikes. The 2% cap, I think, is that's kind of dead in the water, too. I think that's what they're saying.
But the fears has been talked about so much, has been put into the public mindset so much. And, and some skeptics say that the House is pushing it knowing that the Senate isn't going to endorse it. But, you mention something often enough, the idea can stick. But I do feel that's bad public policy. So.
And the other thing is, nothing to do with this, but I think we have to have a motion at each board to authorize the chair and the vice chair to sign warrants, like in July, or if something, a meeting doesn't occur. So I think we have a motion.
So moved.
That is to have the chair, the vice chair, and the clerk.
And the clerk.
Sign.
And hold them liable if there's any problem.
Okay, we have a motion by George. Can we have a second?
Second.
Is that part of the motion, George?
Yeah.
All in favor of the authorization of the chair and vice chair and the clerk sign off warrant? Okay, thank you. Unanimous.
Jim and Ken, on this legislative breakfast, is there anything that can be done that we could get our area legislatures to come to the meeting?
I have been personally contacting, reaching out, not just the blank email that we've sent out in the past, and I did get a positive response from one already. So, and then I just sent that out today because Mary Lee has been sending out the blanket one, so I am sending personal notes from me. And
so you think maybe?
Well, I know that we have 3 confirmed right now, which is...
2 same ones that we had last time?
Yeah, and 1 new, Alice, yep. So, it certainly would, and what I said, we want to hear, we want their insight on the process, and we want them to hear our concerns.
That's right.
Okay, anything under others, Leon?
On the others, and I don't know whether it's at this board level or not, I do know that Mount Anthony has a buildings and ground person that's retiring, and I think somebody said BSD is retiring as well.
Not yet, no.
Maybe not, but I was just wondering, if it was true, I was going to say it would be a good time that I would think that you would bring it all up under one person. Even in that case, it would be great that if the boards will come together and have one buildings and ground person for the whole district, and then restructure that thing to have directors at the different schools, if need be, how they need to do that. I think
which was one of the recommendations in the MSG report that you had done a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we are looking at what that would look like.
Yeah.
To make a recommendation.
Move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else under others? Yes, Fran?
I just want to commend the Bennington Banner. Derek Carson did attend the negotiations meeting, and what was written in the paper was basically what was done at that meeting, so that's pretty good, and I think it behooves, more people. I did notice 2 or 3 more people in the audience at that meeting, so hopefully more people will come, and hopefully in the very near future, they'll be taped also. So, and Richard Bump is there taking the minutes of all these meetings, so we are getting, and we do approve the meetings also, the meeting minutes. So there's, it's out there.
You've been wanting that for many years.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's good to see, and I think we're getting good feedback on that, and the people will actually know what the heck is going on, so. Anyway, that's all I had.
Anybody else under other? Okay, seeing none, motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second,
Second, all in
third,
favor?
fourth, and fifth.
All in favor?
All in favor, aye.
I got a question.